Hey guys, in this video we're going to be learning about 4 things to help with our left hand when we play guitar. So to get a great left hand position, to have great left hand technique, first what we want to do is we want to lift from our elbow. So the way we want to get our arm to the guitar is by just lifting from our elbow and touching the guitar neck. What we don't want to do is lift our elbow up like this, moving our elbow up to the side. What we want to do is just lift from the elbow, and then we'll slide to where we learn our first notes. What we do, we just lift with our elbow, and then we're going to turn our hand like this, and we'll slide over. The second thing is we're going to look at our left hand thumb. And what we want is when someone's looking at our hand, we generally don't want the thumb to be peeking over. We want the thumb to be behind. If we notice what happens to my wrist when I move my thumb, is it becomes a little bit like this. But what we've learned is the best place for our wrist is when our wrists are straight. If we can have our thumb behind the neck, sometimes it can be seen a little bit depending on what kind of guitar you have. But generally we want to have a straight wrist on the top of our hand. So, one thing that kind of happens is when I tell students to move their thumb behind the neck, is that they'll move it sideways like this. But what we want instead is to have our thumb slide down. So we always want to tell ourselves we're doing a good job by giving ourselves a thumbs up. And that'll get us in a good position for our left hand. The reason for that is if our fingers are more like this, it's a lot easier for the fingers to touch the strings next to the ones they're pressing. So if we had to play like a chord or something, we could hear those dead notes. But if I move my thumb down, those 2 notes are able to ring without being touched by these fingers. And when we're playing, we also want to play on the tips of our fingers. When that happens, when we play on the tips of our fingers, it serves the same purpose. It gets out of the way of the other strings. So if I was playing this note here, if I had to play 2 strings at once, it's easier for them to ring. But if I was playing with my fingers flat like this, it makes it harder to make those other notes ring and harder to make just this note sound the way we want it to. And then lastly is that we want to have our fingers play right next to the fret. So the frets, once again, are these metal columns that go down this way. So if we're playing on, let's say, the first fret, which was B right here, we want to play right behind it. So when I play that note, I'm not pressing very hard. But if I move back just a little bit and press just, give the same amount of pressure, I get a thud note. So if I just scoot it up, we get a clear note and we don't have to try so hard. One more thing is, since there's no strings on the back of the guitar neck, we don't really want to have our thumb pressing so hard because that doesn't really serve any purpose. I know when I started, my thumb was pressing really hard so I can make the notes clear. But what we want to think of instead is to have our fingers press into the strings and kind of imagine like we're hanging from a branch or something and having our fingers hang that way. Once again, we're thinking about our elbow being kind of heavy. And if our elbow is heavy, it can help pull the finger into the string without even using my thumb. The thumb is just there as a guide, and in certain cases to help just a little bit. But we never want to overuse our thumb because that's never fun, and that's something else that could lead to injuries. Thank you, and I'll see you around.